All right, we are back. It is time to get into your submissions to the People's Panic Meter. Not everybody is going to be featured here this week just because, one, we had all the quarterback stuff to talk about at the top, but also a lot of people sent in the same names over and over again, Boone. So we tried to hit some that could just be a little bit more all-encompassing. I would say that our most popular submission, both going and social media, was one of the players we're going to talk about in this tweet from this email from TT here. Not going to read all of it, but long and short of it. Hey guys, big fan of the pod here. My panic topic of concern is regard to two supposed to be great wide receiver duos, Brian Thomas Jr. / Travis Hunter and AJ Brown and DeVonta Smith. For the Jags, through 2 weeks, they've been leading the team in targets, but are being outproduced by guys like De'Ami Brown and Brenton Strange. Is this more of an issue adapting to Liam Cohen's offense or having chemistry issues with Trevor Lawrence? Brian Thomas Jr. seemed to have his best games toward the end of the season, but it was supposed to have this monster year. Travis Hunter, he's getting targets but not doing much with them. Seems to be getting a small scale underneath stuff after being touted as generational talent. For the Eagles, is this a result of a tough schedule to start the year, et cetera, et cetera? So again, won't read the whole email there because there's a lot, but we got two wide receiver duos to talk about here, Boone. I actually want to start with the Eagles wide receiver duo here because I think it's a much more simple, cut and dry situation here. I think you're maybe more optimistic than me based on the submission here. Talk me off why I shouldn't be totally panicking about these wide receivers because, like, these games are going to happen, right, Boone? Like, where they're winning and they just sit on the ball and they don't have to push it to either of these two guys on the outside. Like, tell me why I shouldn't be panicking here.
I mean, I wanted to hear, it's like the hurry up offense segment that we do. I almost want to throw the flag and hear your side of it first because you're the one that's like going total panic on it. I don't feel like I should be the one talking you down right away, but we know it's a concentrated attack. We know how talented these guys are. I think we could chalk it up to a strange week one where even though he's denying it, where AJ Brown's coming off that injury in the preseason, that he enters the season, he's not quite 100%. And then they have a tough matchup against the Chiefs. And yeah, we looked at that game and we said the Chiefs offense is in a rough spot and the Eagles are going to come away with it. But going to KC to play that defense, it's not the best matchup by any means. And I think what's happening right now is people are looking at this offense and they're comparing it to 2023, right? When they changed coordinators and when things kind of went downhill. You and I did an episode, it was my very first episode on this show, where we were talking through the Eagles offense and, could it be a scenario where they actually do take a step back? Are people kind of, overrating them, that sort of thing? And back then I mentioned that even though people look back at that season and they think about the struggles the offense had, they actually were producing okay for fantasy. Like Jalen Hurts was still doing his own thing. He was fine fantasy-wise, right up at the top there. And you look at the receivers who we're talking about right now. I mean, AJ Brown was 11th in fantasy points per game that year. DeVonta Smith, 21st. And you look at it, and Brown actually had a very slow start to that season as well. Now, it wasn't quite as slow as this. It wasn't one catch in the opener. It wasn't under 30 yards in the second game. It was 79 yards in week one. It was under 30 yards in the second game, actually, but it was a little bit better than what he had this week. And then guess what happened? He rattles off 6 straight games with over 120 receiving yards. So that's the kind of player we're talking about. I don't think he's fallen off a cliff. The one area that I'm sure you're going to focus on, and this is where the problem lies, and this is why I have some panic, is the volume. They're not passing the ball as much. And that's where the concern for me really stems from, is if that continues, and over the course of a season, you look back at what Jalen Hurts has done in previous years, he has games where they don't need to, like you alluded to at the top there, right? They're going to have games where they're winning, they're controlling things on the ground, the defense is playing well, they don't have to chuck it all over the yard. I'm going to guess that this just happened at the beginning of the season for them, and it's 2 games, and one was a tough matchup, and that's why the numbers don't look great. There are going to be games where they're pushed more. There are going to be games where they have to put it in the air. And I'm having some faith that in this attack where we have 4 pieces that are just so strong, these are great fantasy producers year over year. It's not just 1 year they've done it. It is several years these guys have produced, that they're going to figure it out. They're going to get it right. But tell me why you are like completely freaking out here. There must be more to it than just the volume stuff.
I mean, it's mostly the volume stuff, and it's just like I agree with you that in 2023 it really Well, obviously, you're right. From a fantasy perspective, it ended up actually working out for a lot of those guys, even if it was not good from an NFL perspective. And they clearly took a step back. I think this offense just doesn't look as put together. They're using motion a lot less. They're using more like tight ends and kind of these heavier personnel packages. It just seems like they're leaning more into like we want to run the ball with Saquon Barkley. And that's the thing. In 2023, they did not have Saquon Barkley. They did not have like, this is our son, we orbit around this guy. Like this is our franchise defining figure in Saquon Barkley behind a great defense. That's another thing. Like the 2023 season was a disappointment because the defense fell apart. This year, I think some of the offensive ceiling has been shaved off because Kellen Moore is not like a top 5 play caller, but I think he's a pretty good play caller. And he's bringing all of those like fun bells and whistles to a Saints team that's not talented at all. Spencer Rattler leads all quarterbacks in dropbacks with motion so far this year, according to Fantasy Points data. Like yeah, that's right, baby. I got my Saints reference in on the podcast, even when nobody's panicking about the Saints because they're the best bad offense in fantasy football right now. I don't know what it is about that team, but anyways, God, now that's producer Colin's fault. Made me lose my train of thought. Got me tilted about the Saints. But I think the thing here is just like we're seeing less of like the fun play calling stuff. We're seeing them lean more into the run game. We're seeing them lean more into the defense, and I just see that happening more and more this year. To that, yes, I would bet my mortgage that like AJ Brown's going to have an eruption game. DeVonta Smith's going to have an eruption game. When is it going to be? Like how many of these 2 for whatever type games do you have to suffer through to get to the end of season final result? And is that even going to be like AJ Brown? How many of these weeks can he stack and still be like a wide receiver 1 in fantasy football? Like at this point, I'm just concerned, and I hope I'm wrong because I love AJ Brown and DeVonta Smith for that matter. DeVonta Smith now the leading wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, not Jahan Dotson. So that's an upset for me, obviously. But like, how many of these games do they suffer through and not meet like ADP expectations? I hope I'm overreacting to all this, but that's kind of my thoughts.
I just think in this offense, like with that amount of talent, I can't put them down this quickly. I can't say that there's no way they're going to come back from this. I mean, they have a matchup with the Bucks in 2 weeks, right? You don't think they're going to be able to throw on the Bucks? Like, and that's an offense that might actually be able to put up some points on them, and then we'll see what happens there, right? I think, who is it, the Rams this week, I think they play? So, like, again, another offense that I think is going to be able to potentially move the ball against them. We saw it in the playoffs last year, right? Like, so I think there's going to be situations where they're going to be pushed more. And can we not chalk this up a little bit to the fact that it is a new coordinator? They're trying to figure things out on the fly here. Like, think about the Chargers last year, right? They came out,
sure.
They ran the ball so early, right? And everybody's like, oh my God, they're a run team, they're a run team, they're a run team. And then as soon as Justin Herbert was healthy, all of a sudden after their bye, boom, they come out and they start throwing the ball and they completely flip the script on what everyone expected from them based on what the coordinator had done for his entire career, right? So I think the Eagles will be okay. I guess I'm not as worried as you. There's some panic. It's not total panic for me.
Well, let me just say, I hope you are right, and I hope I am wrong in this scenario. One thing I have been wrong about so far is that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be this fun, exciting offense. Let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver duo, Boone. And this one, to me, is a much more complicated question than the group that we just talked about, because for the Eagles wide receiver duo, and I'll just lead this one off here and give you kind of my thoughts on BTJs in particular. Hunter, I don't really know what to say too much of. Like, it was kind of a bad break last game because a cornerback got injured midweek or mid game, and the usage for him hasn't been great. I think they're trying to get him going with some design stuff, but it's just the whole offense feels off. They had 5 illegal shift penalties in week 2. 5. Like, they don't even know how to get lined up properly and like execute all these like pre-snap and at-snap motion stuff. Either Trevor Lawrence's timing is off, the receivers don't totally know what they need to do, or, again, the whole infrastructure is just feeling a little weird. But with BTJ in particular, I mean, that was I charted that game and rewatched it. It's as bad as like the box score indicates. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, quarterback let him down, whatever. Like, no, he played poorly. And this whole idea that people are like, oh, Trevor Lawrence is throwing him hospital balls. Guys, if we're going to be a starting NFL receiver, we're going to be a wide receiver 1. We're going to be a wide receiver in this offense. This offense, which asks you to does all that pre-snap stuff to weaponize over the middle plays, like we gotta be going over the middle. No, like hospital ball, none of that stuff. Like you gotta go over you gotta sit in zone coverage and take a lick. And my biggest problem with all this, Boone, is that if I was to critique one thing about Brian Thomas Jr.'s great rookie season, it's that he struggled against zone coverage. 38th percentile success rate versus zone and reception perception. Didn't know how to settle down all the way. His success rate on slants was very low. The connection between these two, and Trevor Lawrence is absolutely at fault for some of this. I'm not letting Trevor off the hook at all, and I'm not even like a Trevor Lawrence defender or any of that stuff. But that, again, makes me almost more concerned, is that it's not just a Trevor Lawrence issue. It's not just a BTJ issue. It's not just the Jags offense isn't totally firing. It's all of these things, which I don't know. To me, that I'm saying some panic, but I feel like I'm seeming a little more nervous than that.
I'm right there with you. I'm some panic, but bordering on total panic for these players in particular, right? And you hit on the vibes of the team, and I don't want to be like a vibes guy, but the vibes of the team are just so concerning, right? Like you look at this right now, and it's a strange situation where we have Brian Thomas Jr. looks like he's unhappy out there. He doesn't really look like himself. And producer Colin threw up the tweet earlier, and there's also a great video out there if people want to find it, of Brian Thomas Jr. of Liam Cohen talking about Brian Thomas Jr. And Liam Cohen admits that he had this wrist injury last week going into the game. And all of a sudden, one of the reporters goes, "Oh, why wasn't he on the injury report?"
Yeah.
And immediately Liam Cohen starts to go like, "Oh, well, it was just like,
when did that happen?"
Trying to talk it down, right? So maybe the wrist injury is the reason for it. I hope. I don't know why. But then you also have Liam Cohen, and we talk about all these different offenses with new coordinators and new coaches, and maybe they'll figure it out over time. And this is one of them. But Liam Cohen screaming at Trevor Lawrence on the field, and Trevor Lawrence just kind of waving him off and turning back to those aren't great things to see. I don't want to see that kind of vibe with the offense when you're trying to figure things out on the fly here. So all of that to me is very, very concerning. On top of the fact that you talked about BTJ with Travis Hunter, so explosive, this incredible athlete, and yet the way they're using him on all these short passes, he's getting the volume. He's gotten 14 targets in the first 2 weeks, and yet it's all this short stuff. They haven't been able to catch him long at all. It just seems so strange to me. And maybe we could chalk up this week to the idea, like you said, there's injuries on defense. He had to play a little more on defense. Apparently they planned to play him more on defense going into the game. Maybe that took away from the offensive snaps a little bit, but it just doesn't seem like they've figured out how to get these guys the ball, how to scheme these guys the ball, and really how to get this passing attack moving in the right direction with everyone together. Will they figure it out? I hope so, but it's looked really, really bad so far. And yeah, it leads to some panic, and I don't think we would have been wrong if we went total panic here by any means.
Yeah, so far, just 6.3 air yards per target for Travis Hunter. I think he's a guy that you just don't quite know. By the way, both these guys have 2 drops so far. There's just been issues there. So it's just one of those, if you're a Trevor Lawrence defender, which I'm not generally, I'm kind of just mixed on Trevor. There's something you could find, especially in last week's game, where you're see, look at that throw. The wide receiver's got to catch that pass. But at the same time, there's so many, he's late on throws, which makes it a more difficult play than it should have been, which I think causes Brian Thomas Jr. to hold up. And then there's, again, the wide receivers are dropping passes. De'Ami Brown put a pass on the turf that could have been a touchdown in this game. It's just, I will say, I mentioned the illegal shift penalties, 5 in that game, which is just crazy, absolutely bizarre stuff. The Ben Johnson Bears lead the league in false starts so far. This is what we talk about in the offseason, where sometimes these fun offenses with all these cool little bells and whistles, the pre-snap eye candy, it's going to take a minute for all the players to get it figured out. I mean, Darnell Wright is the one returning Chicago Bears offensive lineman who was locked into his starting spot because Braxton Jones was battling out at left tackle. And you just he's the guy who's committing all the false starts. He's the one returning guy they had. And it's all right, he's locked in he just can't stop false starting because it's a lot of different stuff going on pre-snap than there was before. So with all of these offensive units, I do think we kind of got to give it a beat and like, let's talk about it in October and November if these issues are still happening. But I don't want to come out of this and just say like, well, we got to let BTJ off the hook because Trevor Lawrence stinks or whatever. Like, no, he absolutely had a horrible game in week 2. And like, I got to wonder about like what's going on upstairs. Like, is he thinking about these hits? He took a big hit in preseason. I remember at the Expo where he got clocked, against the Steelers. And it was like, ooh, hope we don't see that happen in the regular season. And then like, it feels like he's hoping it doesn't happen in the regular season. So I don't know, just a lot of stuff going on here. I don't know what the fantasy advice is to take away from this, Boone. Like, you're not going to bench. I don't think you're going to bench BTJ. I don't think you can do that. He has a 12-target game. Like, you're hoping that recorrects itself. Like, Travis Hunter always was kind of like on the wide receiver 3 radar. So if you got a better option, sure, throw him out there and see when that usage sort of kind of crystallizes. Maybe he's a back. All these rookies can always be back half of the season players, Boone. But for BTJ, it's like, what do you tell people to do? Like, you're probably just going to keep playing him and like fingers crossed, right? Or is there something else?
It's hard to imagine you'd have better options to sit him, but he does fall down more into the wide receiver 2 range for sure. And you have to factor in too, there's just a lot more target competition, right? Like the person who wrote in said, there's all these other guys there. Before it was a little bit his show. Now on top of Hunter, it is Dammy Brown. Parker Washington is stepping up and doing some things this year. Brenton Strange, the rushing attack. Like, there are a lot of guys involved in the offense now on top of trying to figure it out as they go. So for him, yeah, you're probably still playing him. I can't imagine your receiving core is so good that you can bench BTJ. But Hunter, I would be looking to bench him. I don't think you can play him until we see something change. The volume has been there, like I said, but the production, not having 35 receiving yards in either of these 2 games with the volume that he's been getting, you can't have him in your lineup until we see something change.
Next one that we're going to talk through here comes from Anthony N. We've got a 2-for-1 special here. Drake London and Mark Andrews are players Anthony is panicking about. I don't know where last year's London Penix connection went, nor do I understand what's happening with Andrews. Is he droppable now? Let's take the easy one first, which I think is Drake London. I don't know, Boone. I have no panic about Drake London.
No